of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll welcome everybody to the first meeting of the new year, and we'll get started. First thing on the agenda, a couple of things. We're not going to really get in depth in any of these, but we're just going to put them out there. Ferry Study Group, we have to do our appointments at the annual meeting, and the Ferry Study Group in the past has only met to discuss rate increases, and we usually get the notification after the legislature already approved it. So there had been talk in the past about let's change the whole concept of the Ferry Study Group and just get some input, maybe quarterly from a group about things going on. And some of it has to do right now with the issue at South Ferry where they changed from a 10 trip ticket or 20 trip one way to a 10 trip round trip. So just, hear from the public, if we need to call in the ferry companies to explain something. Again, they're both private ferry companies. We have no authority over them. But, True Shelter Island, Spirit can work together. So I think we have to come up with what exactly do we want the ferry study charge to be and how many members do we need on it? So it's just something we need to,
I don't think it has to be large, but
Well, historically, it was three people,
yeah.
right?
I would say 3 or 5.
yeah, 5 always seems like a good number.
Yeah, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
But with the new quorum issues, maybe 3 is correct. I mean, and I think the number's tied into what are we asking? We have to determine what we're asking of them.
Right.
So if it's like, maybe to make a report to the board once a year, what's going on in the ferries, that's not a lot.
I mean, other than the actual ferry fees, I think the only involvement they ever got in was the early bus, the vote for the early bus,
Yeah.
which was a good thing.
Yeah.
So maybe, but again, it's just a matter of how we determine what we're asking of them. And
Right.
so just give it some thought. And maybe next week we can get ready to put an
Christina, can you remind us that we're?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
think the waiting line situation also, on occasion, at different times of the year.
Or even just like a heads up somehow that, listen, that's going to be
Needs to be
closed.
looked at a little bit,
Yeah. Okay. And all in all, I think, might be a good thing. I don't think we're having a little preliminary discussion before the meeting. How good the residents really have it with the fees. I don't think people understand what a boost that resident round trip is compared to the regular fees. So, okay, so we'll talk about that. The next one on the list is the accessory dwelling units. This is, and I put process moving forward. This is something we've been discussing on a fairly regular basis. The Housing Board has been discussing it. This is something we can start right away. We don't have to wait, to find land or to find, builders or anything else. There's a number of options we have here. I made a list of a few things. We did apply for a grant. We're waiting to hear back from the state. The state has $20 million available for 10 grants, specifically for accessory dwelling units. So we applied and we're hoping to hear on that one. So these were my thoughts on the ADUs, things we have to look into. Stephen, currently it's owner occupied main house. Now, can we do it so that if it's owner occupied, but they don't live there full time, but we make the rental, the accessory dwelling unit, a full-time rental to somebody on the registry? Is that very involved to change that in code?
No, well, yeah, so I just want to take a step back.
Sure.
So people throw out like ADU and then accessory apartment. They're one and the same, it's synonymous. So in our code, we have accessory apartments. It's within our zoning code, it's a accessory use in almost every zoning district allowed as a.
Just so I understand. So it's not has to be a specific separate building?
No. An accessory apartment can be within the primary residence as like a basement conversion or something like that, or a separate and distinct detached structure.
Right.
So it's allowed in every zoning district, I believe, but B1, Causeway, and Near Shore Overlay. So you can have, in Near Shore Overlay specifically, they say you can't have any new accessory apartments built. You can only have any that predated 1959 as a pre-existing non-conforming use.
1959, you said?
1959. So these accessory apartments are allowed, again, as of right. So they don't need a special permit, don't need a area variance, don't need anything like that. So, bless you. So, but you have certain regulations that you have to meet, and one is owner occupancy. But the owner can reside either in the primary residence or in the accessory apartment and lease out the primary, or vice versa.
But does occupancy mean full-time year?
No. You need to have, like, because again, we're a second home community for the most part. As long as you are not renting that out.
Okay,
Like, you can't just go to Florida and rent out both structures.
right, okay.
So if you're not here full-time, that's fine. So the issue is that in the zoning code, it says it has to be owner occupied and only for year-round tenancy.
Mhm.
In 2019, we adopted the rental law, which now, and in it, it specifically trumps all chapters of the code, now allows for accessory apartment owners to lease out the accessory apartment as a vacation rental, which is less than 14 days.
Right,
So it basically made that requirement of year-round occupancy moot in the zoning code. So the first thing you have to do if you want to bring accessory apartments back into the fold as an option to provide community housing is to take it out of the rental law and not allow it to be a vacation rental because it's too lucrative to
Right.
rent it out on a short-term basis that no one will ever in their right mind want to rent it out on a year-round basis and for community housing, or far and few between. So the first thing we would have to do is amend the rental law, which is chapter 105, which is not in zoning, and then go back to the default year-round occupancy. I wouldn't do any zoning changes yet because we're updating our comprehensive plan. But what the town board should consider when we do the update to the comprehensive plan, if it's in keeping with the comprehensive plan, is to do what Southold and Southampton do. For accessory apartments, you could either rent it out to a family member or someone who's on the housing registry. That's it.
okay,
You can't do market rate unless there's nobody on the registry. Once
right,
you know, on the registry,
Right.
then you can rent it out. Great. So that's my recommendation, what we can do short-term. In addition to that, then you have some policy things, administrative things you can do as far as making it exciting or providing a carrot
yeah, I've got,
to people.
I got a list. So BJ and I had the discussion, I mean, right now you can do a short-term rental in the near shore, but you can't have an accessory.
Did we find that clause?
Yeah, yes, that is my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be a zoning change then, or,
Yes, I think.
okay,
We'll figure that out.
Okay.
But the biggest hurdle is you can't build any new ones in the near shore. So you would have to change that
right.
in the near shore, allow accessory apartments as a valid accessory use.
And just
But we allow accessory sleeping structures.
That's what I was gonna say.
Bedrooms are
People are gonna get
bedrooms.
confused because there are people putting up accessory sleeping structures, which are different from accessory apartments because they're not allowed kitchens.
Correct.
So that is something that
In
people
term-
need to understand though, because you keep saying that you're not allowed to build new, but they see people putting up
Right.
sleeping above garages or, it's different than an actual apartment.
It
It's
is,
not
but
allowed.
should it be? I mean, is the thing we have to do, is there that much less of an environmental impact because you have a kitchen
Right.
versus being used, to a two-bedroom for a family? I mean,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
well, just so you
That's
know-
what we're worried about in the near shore overlay.
Yeah, accessory sleeping though is only supposed to be used for sleeping for domestics, guests and family.
Yeah.
Rentals.
They should be. Accessory sleeping should not be.
But in our code, we allow
It's a separate use. So you have a use that's accessory sleeping,
Yeah.
and then you have a separate use, which is an accessory apartment. Accessory sleeping is just for domestic guest family, no kitchen, can't be rented out in certain zoning districts. And And then you have an accessory apartment, which is its own standalone animal and has its own regulations that you can rent out with a kitchen. You have to have a kitchen to be an accessory apartment.
I wonder if it's a big issue with the ADUs, if the accessory building is actually a short-term rental, or most short-term rentals of the house itself.
Right, I wonder how many would lose,
Yes, yeah.
you know, yeah.
Well, right now, I asked the building department, I'm like, can you give me a list of accessory apartment licenses? There is no list.
Right.
We don't have, that's another thing we need. We need to know what the universe is of accessory apartments.
Exactly.
Well, we did have,
Because my landlords are like up to date on making sure that where I'm living has a legal accessory apartment.
I asked the building department, they said there isn't a list.
Maybe you asked the wrong question. We'll have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
The data I got from the building department had, I mean, those are rental registries, 150 minimum rental registries, more like 200. But I don't know if maybe
Yeah,
that
that's all encompassing.
license and permit
Yeah.
is included in
Yeah.
that.
Not, well, no, because rental registry, again, is different because it's not owner occupied, the property, and it's a rental registry.
Right.
Accessory apartments is owner occupied, so it's a separate thing. It
Oh, I
shouldn't be-
see.
I understand, but I'm saying in their database,
Yeah, right.
they may be putting it in the same category as the rental registries.
All right, I'll ask them.
I would clarify that, but check that, because I do think it's included, because when I have the data from 2005 until 2022, and I've been going through it meticulously, and the last 3 years has all the rental registries, but they have notes in them. So you pull up all the rental registries and it says this one's long-term, this one's short-term, this is owner occupied. Like you have to actually go through and read all the data. I'll email it to you, I have it. Super fun.
Before we get too liberal in terms of the nearshore area, a person who lives in the nearshore area and has represented Silver Beach with the homeowners down there, and see them saying to me, what's the demand? Is there the demand? Sure, there's a demand. Do we know what the demand is? Can the demand be met outside the nearshore area? Or is the demand so great that you need to now include the nearshore area? To what extent would you include them? Would you sprinkle that out around the island? Or, but the fear that people have is a concentration of suddenly, 15 of these going up in the Silver Beach area, that
But,
kind of
yeah,
thing. So-
but I understand
So,
that.
so
fear.
almost like phasing it in over, because I just think that, everybody is speculating on the demand we know housing is an issue. We know housing is an issue for the people that live here right now and for any newcomers that we want to bring into the community. So, but I just think a little bit of caution before we start doing a lot of changes in code, that we carefully think this thing through.
Yeah.
That
you're
it's
saying it
done.
may not be necessary.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
it might not be a blanket thing. I mean,
Correct.
I could think of a friend who has a accessory unit on his property, but he's got the creek behind him. And he would love to convert that for his family,
Yeah.
and he can't. So it's, it might be a case by case.
Just think caution is, again, I love the idea of, because one of the things that we heard during this 6-month downfall of housing here on the island I heard personally, and everybody here at the table had heard, why are you building all these new structures when we have existing structures? So, we're now, I think the housing board, we're all on the same page. Needs to be a little bit of this, but more of that. And more of that probably being along the ADU line, because we do have structures available that we could tap into where we're not building new facility, new housing.
And by right, they're allowed to have them, so it's not considered new growth.
Well, I think what's going to end up happening initially is that people who have accessory sleeping structures are going to want to convert them to accessory apartments by just adding a stove. I mean, it's that simple
Right,
for most
yes,
of these
yes,
to
correct.
convert. So
That would be
I
ours.
think it's not necessarily going to be a boom in new construction.
Right,
It's just going to be
right.
converting
No,
existing
you're
construction.
you're
So-
right.
And bringing them up to code if necessary.
Bringing them up to
Yeah.
code.
Right.
Yeah, the housing plan, that's one of the major suggestions is the
Yeah.
ADUs. And, I think the first step towards attaining that goal of utilizing ADUs to, address the community housing problem is to change the rental law and just
Right,
you go back to the default
Right.
that it has to all be year-round occupancy, every accessory apartment. And that's an easy fix. That's something we can do
Right.
quickly.
Okay.
And then it's the board's job to make it enticing.
well, that's what I want to get to next,
Correct,
Stephen.
correct,
So I made a list here of issues that we have to discuss about ADUs. First was the owner occupied, second was the near shore, third was, make sure they're brought up to code. Then I put down incentives. Do we waive the application fee? I don't even know how much a building application fee is, but it's something. Do we look into tax incentives for if you commit to make it an affordable rental? I don't even know legally, BJ, if you can do that, some kind of tax incentive. I think we could offer IA funding. If they're gonna have to upgrade their systems and we have the WQI money, that would kill two birds with one stone. It would help with housing and it would help with the septic
We need
issues.
Fred Thiel's group to weigh in on whether or not it's considered new construction and therefore ineligible for funding.
Okay,
I mean, because there's
Okay.
some who take a hard
Right,
line and say
yes.
it's new construction, right?
well, yeah, okay.
Others who say it's not a new subdivision, therefore it's existing.
But the other part is what Meg said is if they're existing and they're just converting them, then it's not new construction.
Right,
you know?
yes.
So,
yes.
yeah, okay, so, but again, it's
Yeah.
something we should look at as an incentive. And the last one I had was, the funding to build, if we get one of these grants we wrote, and maybe we can use money, that way,
Is that in community housing?
And I'm not even talking about the 0.5% from community housing money, right?
And I actually, and this would slow it down, and I get it. So, but speaking strictly from an environment, at least if we're gonna give permission for somebody to have an ADU that's existing, they're just gonna convert it, let's just say the simplest one. It's not incentivize them to do the IA. I think it's a requirement. If we're gonna increase density now, because that's what we're talking about.
No, I know we have to do the IA. I was saying that it's fully funded.
Yeah, fully funded, and which most of them are,
Yeah.
Meg, right? Most of them are anyway, people who are applying, but I'm just saying,
Oh, I agree.
there's two ways to look at that,
Oh, no.
encouragement, but also requirement.
Yeah,
Because,
I think it's an important requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are not getting fully funded, but people are partially funded, whether.
Most of them-
Yeah,
They get the
come close.
county and the state and the
Yes.
town, but
Yeah.
the town doesn't allow for new construction. So a lot of the major renovations, new constructions, any expansion, any increase in bedroom count, you don't qualify for town funding through the WQI program. So
Most of those people will get county and state money.
So is that in the code or is that
It's in the
the change?
WQI policy.
okay.
Yeah.
What town we can change? We have to.
Well, that's where I come in with.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Fed deals
I understand.
2%, so you have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
But you could use housing money for the infrastructure, which would be
Yeah.
the sanitary. So you could use a different pot to fund different things depending on what
Okay.
we look
Right.
at.
All right.
And the one other area that we can look at is along the Route 114 corridor, the empty stores and the possible housing above, stores. That maybe we need to sit down, at least show an effort, because people talk about the condition of 114 all the time. So it's incumbent upon us to continue the discussion with people that have owned these buildings, which have been vacant for days, for years and years and years, to try to do something about it for a multitude of reasons, not just for housing, but also to get more businesses started here on the island. And talk about ferry fees. Well, if you didn't have to leave the island to go to to do other things.
I don't know how we have that discussion. That's my answer to
Yeah.
people. These are private properties.
Right.
Yeah.
People have the right to use or not use them.
Yeah.
They're being taxed.
I get that. They do have that right,
And
but
I don't think that some people, some owners are open to a discussion.
When I moved
it
here
doesn't hurt to ask.
almost 40 years ago, and I always quote Eric Von Klopp said to me, he said, if there's a need for a business on Shelter Island, it's here.
Yeah, yeah,
So, there are empty stores. It would be a great convenience to have Feedy's back,
right,
but,
yeah. And then
We could
meanwhile,
also-
Ellie's has kind of stepped up.
Right.
You know, there have been, I feel like the IGA's hours have never been better in
Yeah.
terms of, covering the day and being open holidays.
Right.
So, and even.
Yeah,
and
well,
Marie's-
you're 100% right.
Yeah.
It's a private,
And they're not at the, they're not at the La Terrace stage, where we could condemn it because it was an attractive nuisance
Right.
and a danger. They're not, none of those buildings, maybe you can make the argument for one building along 114, but the rest of them, I as a liberal, I don't want to overstep government, I don't want government overstepping
We
their,
also had a talk at one time, BJ, before you got on,
Yeah.
about maybe a vacancy tax.
oh,
And the problem with the vacancy tax is, number one, how do you justify it? What are you using the money for? And two, you have some buildings, and I don't know if I can say it, but, well, the reporter moved out. That building's been empty for, nobody even knows it's empty. Then they can't get anybody to go in there. So is it fair to charge them a vacancy tax because
Right.
they can't find somebody to rent it?
exactly.
So we have discussed, and the same thing, Jim, with the apartments above it. I mean, it's a huge ask on the property owner. And again, we have so many stores that are empty in the first place, that's,
No, but then you run into Department of Health,
yeah.
sanitary.
Right.
But I just wanted to just throw out there, we have also the community housing license, right? So the incentive for that is really, that I can see, is if someone owns a piece of property with a house and something that they can turn into an accessory apartment, the carrot there is you don't have to have owner occupancy. So you can rent out the primary residence and the accessory apartment both. At least the accessory has to be rented out on a community housing.
So would they both have to be year-round rentals, or can one be a short-term and one be a?
Yeah, the one, at least the licensed community housing, whichever the house and live house, that would have to be off the registry. But the other dwelling does not have to be owner occupied, so you can rent that out as a market rate rental. So we also have that tool in the toolbox.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice.
So I think the one thing we have to impress on the community housing board is to make sure that the registry is up to date and people are on it, there's a need.
Yeah.
We know there's a need, but let's get them to commit that,
Well, again, using, social media, running ads in the paper, that,
Right.
to encourage people to sign
Right.
up.
I think that's a huge thing that people are looking for,
Yeah,
because not everybody is in the same boat as the 7 of us sitting around
Right.
the table that believe that there's that kind of a need. To determine that type of a need, you need to encourage people to get on the registry. You do need to build that up. You won't get everybody, but you do need several dozen names to say, hey,
Well, I think we were at like 70, right, Christina? The community housing registry,
Was it
weren't we
that
at like
much?
70?
7-0?
don't hold their registry, but
I could have.
I know there was probably interest in 70, but I don't know, that's why I want to make sure they're actually on the register,
Yeah.
I think we heard from quite a few people, but let's
Yeah.
make sure that,
The number 70 rings a bell.
yeah.
I would be ready to join those, yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's a big number.
Yeah.
I also, can we task like the building department to pull for us like a list of all the ADU
Yeah.
units and accessory dwelling units, just so we can quantify? I know during, discussions, a community member, she had a list that was
Yes.
higher than ours, like we could request from her to get that,
Right.
just to try and do a
I
reconciliation.
think that was all accessory units, period.
It was-
It could be a shed, it could be a garage,
Right,
it could
and
be.
that's-
I looked at the same list and pulled
Yeah.
out, and my number, I forgot what it was, but it was much smaller and more
Right, yes.
reasonable.
Yeah, there was.
And mine were convertible, like to me, if it was a full 2-story garage and unfinished space on the storage on the
Right.
second floor, to me, that was a potential ADU.
Yeah.
It's a story and a half or a single-story garage, not so much.
Right.
It's just a different class.
I mean, technically, I built a playhouse for the kids, where people have a shed, they have to get a building permit. So that's included in the accessory,
Yeah,
building, so
yeah, yeah.
you can't just, use
Yeah.
a blanket statement.
Right.
Right.
I went through all the permit data from again, 2005 to 2022, And I looked exactly at, how many were garage conversions, how much was a one-story garage, how many garages with the clause that they're not allowed to finish it, not allowed to convert it, no plumbing, must be a dry building, because there's a lot of those.
Yeah,
And so I kind of pulled all the statistics for that, so we could see exactly how many permits were issued between 2005 and 2022 for accessory sleeping structures, accessory apartments, and just garages.
Accessories. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like storage. So I do have that data. I pulled
That's
that
good.
for-
That's great, Meg.
So I'll share it with everybody. It's in the comp plan, in the demographics and housing chapters, so.
Yeah, and I would love to see all
That's good.
pre-COs, COs of these, because prior to 2005, obviously,
Right.
between, to see what's out there and what is, because, and again, it's anecdotally stated that there's a lot of accessory apartments that don't have the license that are being utilized.
right.
So what we'd have to have is a global list of all our
Yeah.
COs.
Just what makes it, yeah.
No, but that was
Just-
from 2005. I'm talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
A lot of our housing stock is.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was my list of things to look into. I'd really like to make this a priority going forward, so if you can come up with anything else we need to do, or we can, Stephen, next week, what do we need to get started on doing?
We basically listed four things there: the tax incentives, offering an IA funding, whether it's a requirement of waiving fees and funding of building.
And bringing them up to code, which
And bringing
will
them up
go
to
into,
code.
maybe the funding can help with that.
Yeah, because it is quite pricey.
Yeah, yeah.
To convert, like, say if you have a garage, you want to convert it.
Right.
Right.
You're looking at 200 grand.
Yeah, I know, yeah, exactly.
350. But on my end, I think the first thing we have to do is the amendment to the rental law. Is everybody on board with that? Making that change, taking owner occupancy at a vacation rental possibility?
I have to look at it.
Yeah, you could draft something, and so we can discuss it,
Well, no, I'm just saying in theory.
Yes, in theory, yes,
In theory,
yes,
and also, again, it's whether or not you want accessory apartments to be year-round occupancy only. So that's the question you have to answer.
right.
And then if the answer is yes, I'll do the code amendment. It's easier.
We have to think about some stipulations on those two things, that, if we are giving money from a grant, significant amount of money for this, or we're bringing them up to code by awarding them, significant amounts of money, that there has to be some type
Has to be a
of
commitment. Yeah.
over a course of a decade
Right.
or something, or something carefully thought out. You don't just do this for a year, and now I have a $250,000 improvement above my garage, and I'm getting out of the business of.
Yeah, no, the Community Housing Board is already working on that.
Right.
So Stephen, when you say you amend the rental law, we're not saying we're shutting down it, short-term rentals.
No, only in accessory apartments.
Right.
You can't have vacation rentals.
Right.
All accessory apartments have to be for year-round tenants. That's, if you want to do that, I could do an easy code.
Yeah.
amendment.
But didn't you just say before that you could rent out the main house as well as no,
With a community housing license.
If you have a, yeah.
Yeah.
but not, both wouldn't have to be for one only,
One, yes.
could be on the registry, so, I think you're still,
When I'm
Making it a-
talking about accessory apartments, it's owner occupied. So one of these structures, the owner is living there.
right, okay.
In that case.
Or not rented would be more accurate. One of the structures is not rented. Because you were saying owner occupancy,
See, when you say owner occupancy, you think a
It's
year.
not full-time.
right,
It's not
right,
full-time.
right,
It's
just
just
not
owner
rental.
occupancy, you come back there at some point.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
While we're on the subject of building department and rentals, it is January, and it'll be, March and April, a prime time to get the rental market up and running. I would like to see somebody come in from the building department to make a report on how we're, who's running this, whose responsibility, how is it being assessed, who's enforcing. Safety and safety, those are we going out and inspecting these places? Because that's something that we talked about doing. Make sure that they're up to snuff so that we don't have something that has happened on the South Fork, death of,
Yes.
innocent people. that didn't know that the sprinkler system didn't work, or the fire alarm didn't
Non-existent.
work, or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that that's a big responsibility. So I think we need to
Yeah,
talk about that
yeah.
early January, plant the seed, get a presentation by late January. Now this is going, fine tune it in February and make sure that it's
Yeah.
ready to go March
Yeah,
1st.
that was on the list of, to do. Reed and I discussed it at the beginning of the year, come over and, give us the presentation of how we're going forward with this now that we, don't have host compliance. So, okay, anything else on this one? Okay, next one, just a quick announcement is, we advertised, we interviewed, and we hired a senior center manager and a social worker. And we met with them yesterday, and they're starting this week. And, we'll bring them in to a work session, formally introduce them and let them, talk a little bit about what's going on. We're hoping to enhance the senior program, bring new people in, meaning more clients, customers, what we could do to add, improve the lunch program, and just get more people involved. We have a very good staff to begin with, but we just, the observation from the town was when we hired Bethany, she did such a great job overhauling the recreation department that we kind of need to do the same thing with the seniors now, get that more,
Just, can I elaborate on that? So yesterday, Barbara from the office was in. Sarah Mundy attended. Our supervisor was there. Christina was there, and I was there. And of course, we had Kelly and Alexandra present, and we had, Christina was obviously there. Chief Reed came in a little bit later, about halfway through the meeting. Basically, we gave some of our discussion items were about job description, changing roles, an assessment period, prior to making suggestions on future recommendations for these facilities, expectations, improved communication. We talked about all those things. I did share with them, and Judy was nice enough to run these all off in the other office. So Lucille, before she left, did a 2020 report, 2021 report. So it's an 8-page document of everything she did during the course of those 2 years. That went to the social worker and to the senior center. And then this very lengthy document about East End mental health awareness initiatives, that was given to them. There are literally 100 different resource people here on the East End on mental health. It's got telephone numbers, email addresses, titles, and who you can get in touch with. So they had that. We did some paperwork to get them up to speed here. We talked about giving them a town computer. We talked about the use of the town computer a little bit. Jerry and Christine, I think, accompanied Kelly and Alla over to Justice Hall,
Yep,
wasn't it, right?
basement.
And the basement, they took a look at the basement where that old office was for the town social worker.
and to the Presbyterian Church.
And to the Presbyterian Church. So they went, and then I accompanied them down to the senior center. We spent about a little over an hour down the senior center. There was a couple of classes going on there. One was an art class with watercolors and things like that, where I knew people from my neighborhood were down there. It was attended by about 6 or 8 people. And we had a nice discussion. I did sit down with Lori a little bit, and we had that very nice discussion there. They got a general feel for the place. And Jim Reed asked that for a separate meeting with Alexandra, to sit down with her and discuss how the town social worker is going to interface with the police department. So that's going to be set up within the next couple of weeks or so. Jim's, wanting to sit with her one-on-one and get that kind of arrangement going. So I think we talked about the reshaping of the department, and we even discussed, it's a minor little thing, but when we talk about the reason for renaming the senior center, I have a statement, and it says, the population and the demand of older adult programming here on Shelter Island needs to be expanded. To remain relevant and attractive future generations of participants and other municipalities have done, the time has come to rename and rebrand the senior center to better serve the changing interests of our growing community. Suggestions on renaming the senior center, and I thought, we could put it out to the community and maybe even get some of their input. I mean, Better Living Center, Spice of Life, We Go Together, Endless Potential, Life Sharing, Still Going Strong Center, Enduring Life, Ageless Inspirations, Getting Together, Lives Well Lived. I love this one, Enthusiasm for Life, and I even like this one, Thrive 55 Plus. So you basically are not waiting for people to get to be 70 and 80, but you were trying to encourage people. I retired at age 59. I mean, I'm not retired, but I did retire. And I know that when I came out to the island, again, you're looking for things to do. So I think if we're going to get the senior center more involved, and the beauty about bringing people 55 plus into it, you're bringing in people with talents and have backgrounds that can help others that might need it, who are either in that age group or older. But getting away, I think there's a certain stigma when you call it a senior center, and a lot of people don't recognize themselves. Are you really a senior? Well, I guess at 75, you're about a senior.
I wonder why 55? Why can't it just be the Shelter Island Social Club?
Community center.
Yeah, I mean, because there's
Well, we have the community center across the way. That's going to be, and that's something to think about. How the community center will interface with
All
the,
community center offers anybody that's an adult that's not a senior is exercise. It doesn't offer them social.
yeah.
Right,
That's the library offers some
right.
things there. But I'm just saying that,
I think
And
this
that's
was,
gonna be one of the tasks of
right.
Kelly is,
rebranding.
not only rebranding is, we got a lot of people say, well, that's for old people, I'm not going there. But it's more of a social thing, We had maybe some activities with the lunch, but we had lunches that people really wanted to come to.
Right.
Or, the painting or other courses we can offer maybe at the community center instead of at the senior center. So we're really
There's
looking to see how can we.
Recreation wise with pickleball, I mean, every elderly person in Florida is big into pickleball.
Yeah.
So let's offer some pickleball, throughout.
Yeah.
I would like to see the tennis courts and the pickleball opened up. Somehow, I know this is something with Dr. Dolger and with security at school about adults being on school grounds during the school day. But I think there's some way that you can isolate, and this is a constant beef I hear from a lot of people. Jimmy, it's a beautiful May day. We can't go down till 3:00 till school gets out. And it was beautiful all day long. I mean, the tennis courts are not next to the school building. They're far removed, and so are the pickleball courts. You and Dr. Dolge, you can sit down and talk about a little bit about whether we put fencing or something, or, some type of thing up there where we, a chain or something just says no,
Beyond this
school
point,
grounds
yeah.
beyond this point, and keep people down in that one area. But to get people out and about, on a day like today, grab a racket, go down and play.
Yeah.
But school's in
Yeah.
session.
I think one of the big things we're gonna try to do is get the senior center more involved with the recreation department.
Right.
And have, Bethany work with
But
Kelly.
Chuck Kraus did the old age, over 50 softball game.
Yeah,
Well, why couldn't you have a league here?
Yeah.
People wanted to play once a week.
right.
And you go out and
Injuries.
got a couple of teams. We got a catcher right here. But those are the kind of, we play basketball on Sunday afternoons in the gym, for
Yeah.
the seniors. They-
Recreational tennis league.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much,
Organize it.
there's so much that can be done.
Yeah.
And by getting the younger people involved in this, whether they're still working or part-time working or, easing into retirement, it's a great way to expand this
Right.
service.
And what we tried to explain to both Kelly and Al was, we're not basing everything on budgets. We want to know what the need is. And we'll figure out how to finance it.
Right, right.
Okay? Okay. Anything else? And so we will have them in after they get, their feet on the ground a little. We'll introduce them at a work session. I'm sorry?
Looking for committee clerk.
Oh, let me finish. I'm not done. The next part is we have had, so we were very lucky with those ads for the jobs, but we still have ads for a part-time committee clerk. And we haven't had any responses. I don't think it's, it's a good foot in the door if you want to work with the town. It's pretty interesting, actually, the committees. It'd be like the planning board and the CAC and maybe the WMAC, not WMAC, WAC. So there's a bunch of committees, and we're looking for somebody to clerk those. There is some night work involved because some of the meetings are at night, but we would hope that we continue asking, but we're hoping to find somebody.
Yeah, it's a somewhat flexible schedule. I mean, there's meeting dates set, but then the rest of the work can be done in a
Right.
flexible fashion.
Right.
That appeals to anyone out there?
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Go around the table, Meg. Do you want to talk about, what was the thing?
I don't remember. I just went blank.
Come back here.
Oh.
Come back.
The RFP,
Right,
comprehensive plan.
right.
BJ and I have been working on the RFP for the comprehensive plan, and we pretty much have it finished. Stephen looked it over. So we're hoping to send it out today or tomorrow, so that we can start getting
So at the.
consultants
Just what that's.
for the comprehensive plan.
Had a consultant, the general consensus was maybe we should find another consultant, so certainly they can reapply.
Absolutely.
Right, well, and when we rebooted, the idea was we would get it a little further along than it was left. And I think more flavor of Shelter Island
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
idea, which I think we've accomplished in all our rep drafts. The CPA, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee has a few chapters that Meg and I have or mostly Meg, have gone ahead on to write, that they need, review and
Yeah,
add their 2
yeah.
cents and all of that, while we're
Yeah.
going to find a consultant to help us polish it, finish it, make sure it's legit,
Mm-hmm. So
and all of that. And
I don't-
see through the the
Yeah.
final process of this gets complicated.
It gets to the county, it has to go to the state, it has to go through SECR, like, there's a whole process.
not just-
So we want
Yeah.
professionals to make sure the
Yeah.
process is done correctly.
And Meg, I should know this, but where did they send out the RFPs last time? How'd they advertise it? Is it like journals they, or?
I don't know, where did it go last time? Usually it goes
I'll go
out,
with no.
there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of,
Yeah, so you're not just putting it in the paper, this.
no, it
send to-
does go in the paper,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
goes to other professional databases.
Yeah, right.
People go and look for
Okay.
bids and, you know.
Yeah.
I just don't have the list in front of me. But yeah, so that, our next comprehensive plan advisory committee meeting is on January 23rd. And so that'll be posted on the website. And that's kind of where I'm at with that.
What was the date, I'm sorry?
January 23rd at 6:30, here in the boardroom.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
PEP meeting next week, next Wednesday, a week from today, that I'll attend. And the only other thing I have is that, elections, I know are in November, but they start looking for candidates late winter and early spring. And I would like to throw this out to the people that are out there. There's 5 of us, whether we're coming back or not coming back, would love, if you're interested, to sit down and you're not sure whether you would like to run or not want to run, but you really wanted more information, that's what we're here for. So I offer anybody, regardless of their party affiliation, because that means very little in this room, as far as I'm concerned. We're a team of 5. We don't go by party affiliation here. That if we can help you with that decision, on a clear conscience, I would love to see some more committed people that are willing to get involved with the town. It's an experience, it's a lot of work, and it is a lot of time. But in terms of the hassles of the job and things like that, I think we're past that. I'm hopeful that, that the country is changing and that we're changing here. And I think that the atmosphere that we want to create for the incoming board is going to be very, very, very good. So I'm very pleased about that, and but we're here. The other thing is, if you decide to run, and regardless of who gets elected, we're committed. Once the early November comes, we know who's going to sit in these chairs, that we will spend some time, whatever it takes. And I'll personally make that commitment. I'm not looking to run out the door. I would like to offer you, which was not offered to any of us, really, an orientation period and answer any questions and help you, adjust to the job, turn over all our files and records, which we have a lot of information on, But the job is great. You know, it's, if you get the right 5 people here with, working with Christina and Amber and Stephen and the staff that we have, Joe, it's a great situation. So I encourage everybody out there, if you're thinking about it, talk to us about it, any of us, who you feel comfortable with. Thank you.
I just want to add that it's sooner rather than later because
I was going to say, isn't it?
February 3rd
For
is
the
the
end.
deadline.
Yeah, and
What's the deadline?
February 3rd. It needs to be at Board of Elections. It's early.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of brought it up. I didn't think it was that early, but I did bring it up for that reason, and
I thought nomination end of February is it?
February 3rd, they want who's going to be running.
yeah.
Okay, yes.
Change it from July 1st or whatever it was.
Yeah, I remember it was, yeah.
Yes, I think that.
No pressure.
Okay, all right, good.
And for me, it's just an age thing, you know, that's strictly it. It's not because I don't enjoy the job, enjoy the challenges. It's
It's a family thing.
It's a family thing and an age thing, and it's a commitment to go elsewhere, so.
Yeah.
But the 7 years thus far has been a tremendous learning experience and a good experience for me.
Great. Amber? Okay. BJ?
Yeah, one thing we've heard a lot in terms of, especially regarding the budget process, was that we don't communicate well with our public. And so I've asked Kevin Lukmansky, our IT guy, to look into this Notify Me program that is used in Southampton to notify the public. And I'm hoping that it won't add much, if any, work to our already overworked staff, that all I'm expecting of this is if you want, you sign up for it as a public. You either text, email, both, and what you'll get is the agenda. It's that simple. You get the agenda. So then it's your responsibility as a member of the public to tune in. I mean, to know what the discussion is about, but there it is, the agenda. And it just occurred to me in the ferry discussion, we could also, if we have a working ferry committee, informing the Notify Me, look at, for the next week, there's going to be delays on North Ferry because there's a boat out of service.
Right.
And again, as a member of the public, that would just be nice to know.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that once we have the system, we'll be using it a lot. But for now, those are my limited sort of,
2 questions.
Yeah.
One's a question. Is it something Kevin would do, or is it a service we have to get, or?
it's a service we have to get, but I think Kevin is, that's where we start, he could investigate the different services and what they're offering.
And to follow up on the way BJ brought it up, was just as recent as the mooring meeting, we had people coming in saying, how can you sneak this on us? We didn't have any notification. I mean, short of knocking on somebody's door and telling them, we did everything we possibly could.
It's all in
So
public.
if people want to know, then we could just send them an email or a text. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah. It wouldn't be blanket. You'd have to sign up for it.
right,
Yeah.
right, you'd have
Have
to,
to register.
yeah,
It's great, Pete.
yeah.
Good.
So,
Anything else?
no, that's it for me.
Steven, you have anything for us?
Nothing, Mr. Supervisor.
Amber? Good. Okay, I'm going to make a motion. We go in, oh, I'm sorry.
Because I know Gordon Easter had his hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Julie,
I'm
Julie?
okay, thank you.
okay, Julia?
Yeah, I had a question that has to do with the difference between accessory sort of sleeping spaces that are advertised on Airbnb as kind of a suite or a cottage, or they're obviously some of them are separate buildings and they have everything but a stove in them. So it doesn't seem to me that any change you would make would remove those from the short-term rental market as long as they continue to not have kitchens in them.
In certain zoning districts, they're not allowed to be rented.
Okay.
So that's something we're going to,
We need to enforce it.
and we also need to inspect
It's
them.
only it's supposed to be used again for domestic health, guests and family.
Right,
That's it,
okay.
for accessory sleeping.
So I think that in the next week or two, we'll have the building department.
Yeah, we need the building department
Yeah.
to tell us their
What the
plan.
plan- Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else, Julia?
Nope, that's it, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience have any questions? There's nobody in the room, so it's only the Zoom people.
Stella does.
Stella?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sure.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Stella.
Thanks for everything that you're doing. I just wanted to throw North Ferry's comment in as you're looking at how to maybe reconstitute or even keep the ferry study group. We would be very much supportive of it staying in place. We like to think that people are not shy. The public is not shy about coming to us directly when they have concerns or questions or during rate relief requests. But in the event that they're not comfortable, I think that the Ferry Study Group is a good avenue for them to come to as well, and for you all to work with us and with South Ferry. So we would be very much in favor of not only having it stay, but participating in any way that you see fit.
Thanks, Del. And so I think it's important to say that, we're not looking to regulate anything. We know that they're both private businesses. This would just be a conduit for the public to, reach out to you if they don't want to come direct to you.
Absolutely. And we agree with that wholeheartedly. And, I think we have South Ferry, North Ferry in the town. I think we have a very good track record of working together. Because we just want to make it better. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an official North Ferry statement.
Great.
And I can't imagine, Cliff wouldn't feel the same.
Great. Thank you, Stella. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any hands going up, so I'm going to make a motion. We go into executive session to discuss an employee the history of an employee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.